Hello and welcome to the Jak and Daxter Analysis, the series where I go through each area of the first Jak and Daxter and analyze each objective and see what does and doesn't work. If you haven't seen the first two parts of the series, make sure to check them out, links down below. Welcome to episode 3, where we'll be having a look at the first real level of the game, Sentinel Beach. Let's get right into it. So, Sentinel Beach is one of the first areas available to the player after the tutorial, and through some dialogue in one of the cutscenes, it's hinted that we go there first. And I agree, for a newcomer to the game, this is definitely the best area to go to first, as it's fairly easy. The objectives here are fairly straightforward, and it gives the player an opportunity to test what they know in the real game. If the player were to go to the Forbidden Jungle first, they would have a bit of a harder time, so Sentinel Beach being the first area is great. First off, let's take a look at how the level itself is designed and laid out. Being the best choice for the first area of the game, the whole level is very simple. All of the other stages in the game are open with loads of branching semi-linear paths to take, whereas Sentinel Beach is a very open level. There's lots of room to just run around and test your moves out. There are no instant death pits in the level, so there's little room for the player to mess up and die. The only threats opposing you are a handful of enemies throughout the level and the lurker shark if you swim out too far, so the player is given a lot of freedom to explore and get more of a feel for Jak. On that note, let's take a look at this level's enemies. The small amount of enemies here are about the same as most of the others in the game, only taking a hit to kill. First we have the Babaks, which are the most common form of lurker, seen throughout almost every level. These guys will just chase you and try to kill you once they know you're there and are close enough to you. Then we have the Lurker Puppy, a little dog-like enemy that'll chase you down once they know you're there. The Sandworms, which are big snake-like things that come out of pits in the ground as you get close and try to bite at you. And the most unique of the level, the Lurker Crab. These little guys run towards you and try to pinch at you with their claws, but they have an invincibility phase. If you hit them when their shell is down, they'll just spin away, taking no damage. You have to hit them once they're exposed when they're trying to get you. This works really well as it shows the player that not all enemies are just run up and hit them. Some enemies have unique patterns, so the player has to learn them before taking them down. So, let's break down the power cells. Like the last video, I'll be going through each power cell individually and analysing it, seeing what effect it has on the player and see what works and what doesn't. Just more in depth than the last time. Unblock the Eco Harvesters. This objective was given to us by Samos right after the tutorial. There's 5 of these green eco vents and they're all really close together, and because they're vents, they give you a full charge of whatever the eco does. So in this case, it's green eco, so these vents will give you full health when you step into it. The way to unblock them is to just hit the rocks on top of them, so this objective is extremely simple. There's really no way to mess this up because there really isn't any risk. Right next to the vents are one of the Lurker Puppies, but once you kill that, there's nothing in your way. Even if you do struggle with the Lurker Puppy, the vents will just refill your entire health bar anyway. I know this suggestion has been said before, but one way that would have made this objective a bit better would be to spread the vents all across the level, similar to the precursor blockers in the Snowy Mountain. That way the player would have to explore the level a bit more, and if they needed, they could get a full charge of health from nearly any point of the level. I'd also try to make it a bit more challenging. I know this is the first real level of the game, but this seems just a bit too easy to get. Maybe on top of having them spread out, have a Lurker Puppy placed at each one, so they'd at least have a small obstacle to overcome. I might be a bit too hard on this objective. It is the first one of the first real level, so I'll give this one a pass. It is really easy and basic, but for a newcomer, especially a kid, this would be challenge enough this early on in the game. Push the Fluff egg off the cliff. This objective was given to us by the bird watcher in the village, however we don't need to talk to her in order to attempt this. This one is basically a path with a few obstacles and the chance of falling off. Already a much better premise than the last one, which was just punch some defenseless rocks. The path is easy enough to find, it's actually right next to the green eco vents. Once on the path, you'll walk behind a waterfall, which is the first chance of falling off, and probably the worst one. Luckily, it's extremely easy to avoid falling off, as the path here is really wide, but even if you do fall off, there's a few precursor orbs hidden there in the water below. Walking further up is a short windy path which has some precursor orbs, and proves to be extremely easy to fall off and force the player to start over again. Luckily, the walk back to the start of the path isn't far at all, so it's not too bad of a punishment. After that, the path widens again and there's a blue eco cluster with a few orbs over a small jump, followed by a box with another blue eco cluster and a scout fly next to it. And then, just up ahead from that, is a third cluster with a lurker puppy right next to it. Between these, there are a few small jumps to make, some of which will cause the player to fall down and start over, so these jumps are becoming more common on this short path. After the third blue eco cluster, nearly all of the jumps from here will cause the player to restart if missed, and on top of that, there are 3 lurker puppies along the path which will cause the player damage. As well as just being an enemy, they can also make all the same jumps you can across the path, so outrunning them isn't much of an option. And if they cause you damage, the recoil from it could cause you to fall off the path and have to start all over again. Once these puppies have been taken care of and all of the small jumps have been cleared, the player will reach the end of the path. Here, there is an orb cache, which hasn't been introduced to the player yet, unless they have explored the village, and the Fluff egg. In order to open the orb cache, you'll still need to be channeling the blue eco from earlier, and that will open it, giving you a bunch of precursor orbs. If you don't succeed the first time, you can just go back and collect the blue eco, and run back until you get it. To push the egg off the cliff, all you have to do is punch and kick it until it falls off. So, this was quite a step up from the last mission. I think this was a really well put together objective and would be enough challenge for a newcomer. The obstacles are well placed and the penalty for falling off isn't death, it's just to run back to the start of the path. If there was one thing I would change, I'd make another obstacle like the waterfall at the end, but more of a risk, like say instead of a wide path, have a windy thin path over a waterfall or something like that. Doesn't really make much of a difference, it would just add a bit of extra challenge right at the end of the path, but it's perfectly fine as is. Get the power cell from the Pelican. So this mission is initiated once you walk towards this power cell that's just lying on the beach. As you approach it, a pelican will swoop down and steal it and take it back to its nest. So, in the words of Daxter,
"Let's go kick some big bird butt!"
After swimming over to his nest atop this little island, we smack him around and he spits out the power cell. Quite a bit of animal abuse in this game, but moving on. Once he's spat out the power cell, we have to race him over to it before he eats it up again. As soon as the short cutscene ends, the race is on. So, we have to try and get there as fast as possible to get the power cell. There are 2 ways to get up to where we need. The first way is the way most people will probably take, going up the rotating watermill platform and running to the power cell. The second way is to swim all the way over to the beach and climb the platforms. Both work well, and I can't really say which is faster. If choosing the first path, you don't have to swim as much, but you have to wait for the platform to rotate to the top, and you have a bit of distance to cover before getting there. Whereas the other path has you swimming more, and you have to climb the platforms at your own pace, but there isn't nearly as much walking as the other path. Taking each of these will set off the lurker puppies, and will cause them to start running towards you and attack you, but you should hopefully be able to outrun them and get to the power cell. If the player is fast enough, they will receive the power cell, and the pelican will fly away, never to be seen again. So, in my opinion, this is a great mission for the first area. It really tests the player on their skills at moving fast and efficient, which they will need to get good at. Having it in the first area was a good choice to teach this to the player early on, especially since there is another chase in a later area which is much more difficult than this, so this can act as a preview of what's to come. Of course, you can just cheat the whole thing and just fucking kill the pelican. What's with all this murder, Naughty Dog? You're lucky I'm not vegan. Chase the Seagulls. This one takes place on the far side of the map, on what the game calls the Sentinels. As a kid, I never knew what a sentinel was or meant, so a quick Google search says it's a soldier or guard who keeps watch. So you'd think it would mean these 2 precursor robots watching over the beach. At least that would make sense, but there's a power cell that says it's on a sentinel, which is on one of these things. I don't know, man. Anyway, there are a bunch of seagulls just chilling on the stone sentinel. If we go up to them, they'll get scared off and fly over to the next one. Daxter tells us to go harass them. Then, climbing on top of the sentinel is a scout fly. Going over to the next one, the same thing plays out, and Daxter screams at them. Climbing atop this one reveals another power cell. Then repeating this process once more on the last sentinel triggers a cutscene of the seagulls causing an avalanche and a power cell appearing. Before going and collecting it, climbing the third sentinel gives you some orbs. We then run over to near the green eco vents and collect the power cell. So again, like a lot of missions in this area, this is incredibly simple and easy to achieve. And again, I know it's the first area, but they could have made this a bit more challenging if they made the seagulls flee to other parts of the area and we'd have to chase them and find them. Fun fact about this mission, early trailers and screenshots show the seagulls used to be on the beach where the pelican and crates are, so who knows, maybe this mission did used to be like this. Launch up to the cannon tower. This is the first mission of the game where it requires the player to accomplish something in another level in order for this one to become accessible. See, if you talk to Kira, she'll explain to you that some of the eco vents are capped so the eco doesn't flow through. So in order to do this mission, the player has to complete a mission in the Forbidden Jungle. But considering this video is for Sentinel Beach, I'll just cover it now instead of go back and talk about it in the next video when I cover the Forbidden Jungle. So once the player has completed the necessary mission and turned on the eco vents, the blue eco vent will be available to use for these precursor launchers. The way these work is once Jak is powered up with blue eco, he can step onto the launcher and, by jumping, he gets launched straight into the air. Most of these in the game let you choose which direction you go, but there are a couple that send you on predetermined paths. These ones let you go wherever. To begin, you power up with the blue eco and use the launcher to get to this tall platform standing in the middle of the water, where there is another launcher. Do this again and there's a blue eco vent with the launcher. Repeat 2 more times, each time controlling where Jak lands, ensuring he lands safely on the platform, and you've landed safely on the cannon tower. Here there are 2 back lurkers, one that's just wandering around, and the other one that's controlling the cannon. Kill them both and the power cell pops out and you've completed the mission, and you're now free to use the cannon, which is used to blow up some of the locked crates scattered on the beach and other places. This is cool as well. Not only is it a little distraction for some orbs, but it also shows the player, if they haven't found this out already, that they can interact with some things in the levels. All in all, this was a simple but very effective mission. It also teaches the player that things they do in some levels affect other levels in some way, with the blue eco vent being blocked, and at the end it shows you can interact with some things in the levels with the cannon. All in all, good mission. Explore the beach. So the next few are the simplest and easiest power cells to acquire in the game. For this mission, we literally just have to walk up to a power cell that's just sitting there. The only obstacle we have is a sandworm that pops out of the ground right in front of it. So we can either walk around it or just hit it and bam, we have a power cell. The only thing this tests the player on is their ability to walk and maybe punch. Climb the Sentinel. Playing through this, you probably just got this one while chasing the Seagulls. You literally just climb the steps and you have a power cell. The only thing this one tests you on is your ability to jump, which is the game's main mechanic, being a platformer, so if you can't get this power cell, good luck to you, mate. And finally we have free 7 scout flies, which is in every area. So, how do I think Sentinel Beach goes as a level? Yeah, it's pretty good. It certainly feels like a first level, given how open it is and how excruciatingly simple some of the missions are here. But because it's the first level, it's fine. If some of these, like the Explore the Beach mission, was in a level like Spider Cave, really late into the game, that shit wouldn't fly. So given that it's the first real level, and the player is still getting accustomed to the controls, I'll let these slide for how easy they are. Others later on won't be so lucky. So, other than that, what else is there to talk about? First off, there is one checkpoint for this level, right at the entrance, so if you die, you go right back there and have to make your way back to where you died. It's honestly not that bad, the level is small and open enough for you to run back in no time without much hassle. This level also has the first example of the diving mechanic being used. There are some orbs underwater, so the player has to dive down and grab them, and let's just say, it fucking sucks. Jak feels fine while swimming, albeit a bit slow, but not terrible. The diving is just awful. It's slow as hell, and positioning Jak to where you want him is a hassle. So getting the orbs is really annoying. Luckily, this is one of only a small handful of times the mechanic is needed, and it can be cheated if you use the blue eco vent just next to the water to get them. Other than that, the level design is great, and when I say that, I mean how the level is laid out and how it looks. Everything is well connected and feels really whole. I really love how in the middle is a big body of water surrounded by land which connects to the ocean. It looks awesome. I also really like the cannon and how you're initially being shot at from it, and that it's part of a mission, and once you've completed it, you won't get shot at anymore. It's a nice little touch. The overall look of the level is really nice as well. Seriously, this game is full of areas that just look amazing. We of course have the beach areas and the water, but we also have these grassy areas with rocks and dirt and plants and such. And oh man, that music though. It's so peaceful and relaxing, which I guess is really fitting for this level, because not only is it a beach level, but it's also the first level, which is pretty easy and relaxing. It also changes slightly depending on where you are in the level, just like in the village. I'm pretty sure every level does this as well, which is just fucking awesome. The only thing I fucking hate about this level is the whole Sentinel confusion. I still don't get it. Please explain to me if you know. So, not much more to say. Sentinel Beach acts as a really good starter level, full of simple missions with a few challenging ones thrown in there. Having the level be as open as it is really gives the player room to try out their moves and become more accustomed to the controls before they tackle the harder stuff the game has to offer. So, join me next time as I cover the next area the game has to offer, the Forbidden Jungle. If you're new here and liked what you saw, subscribe. It really does mean a lot to know that I'm putting all this effort into these videos and it isn't for no one, so thanks everyone. I'll see you all in the next one.